tariffs, there's been a lot of on and off, some inconsistency.
There's no inconsistency. I'm not like a block that just, I won't delay. It's called flexibility. It's not called inconsistency. It's called flexibility.
America is losing what made it great. In the heartland in Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, streets are empty, schools are closing, and farmers are burning corn because they can't sell it. John Deere factories, once a symbol of American power and rural pride, are silent. More than 200 workers were laid off overnight, no press conferences, no explanations, no chance to say goodbye. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I think you're going to remember today, it's going to be a free nation that we're dealing with. We're going to have a very free and beautiful nation. It's going to be Liberation Day in America, and it's going to be a day that hopefully you're going to look back in years to come and you're going to say, you know, he was right. This has turned out to be one of the most important days in the history of our country.
While the White House administration threatens 200% taxes on equipment manufactured abroad, the giant with the green and yellow logo is quietly moving production to Mexico. Why? Because labor there is 70% cheaper. Because the ports in Los Angeles are jammed, there are not enough components and American logistics are falling apart at the seams. But most importantly, because demand is disappearing. Demand for technology, demand for products, demand for farmers themselves.
After weeks of whiplash, Trump threatening tariffs, imposing some and walking back others, many Americans are feeling the uncertainty. In Swisher, Iowa, distillery owner Jeff Quint says it's paralyzing.
The bourbon industry is going to be collateral damage in this tariff war. I don't really think there's any way around that.
And he's not alone. Tonight, the majority of Americans, 61%, now say they disapprove of how the president is handling tariffs. 56% say they disapprove of his handling of the economy overall. But the president has dismissed those concerns tonight, saying he has the right to change course.
The U.S. is no longer feeding the world. In the first half of 2025, agricultural exports to Canada, Japan, and China fell by 94%. This is not a decline, it is a collapse. Soybeans are piling up, corn is being returned from ports, and beef is accumulating in warehouses due to retaliatory tariffs. All this while Canadian farmers are signing billion-dollar contracts with the EU and Asia. Their products are not cheaper, but they are more stable, more environmentally friendly, and, most importantly, more predictable.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all car and light truck imports into the country. It's due to come into effect on April 2nd. Economists and world leaders are warning that it will be a tax on consumers and have a chilling effect on the global economy. But to Americans, Trump paints a rosy picture, predicting that the levies will spur growth.
While America argues, Canada builds. While John Deere lays off workers, Kubota hires them. While Americans try to repair their old tractors because they cannot afford new ones, competitors from Japan and Europe are opening factories in Texas and Georgia, promising affordable equipment and respect for the right to repair. And it's working in Missouri, Iowa, and South Dakota. Ken and Kubota sales have already surpassed Deere's.
And police in Italy are investigating possible arson after a fire destroyed more than a dozen Tesla vehicles. Elon Musk is calling the incident at a Rome dealership terrorism. This comes as Tesla has been the target of recent protests around the world.
Farmers who were once the pride of the nation are now forced to lease their land, sell their equipment, and even leave their hometowns. Where there used to be family restaurants and farmers markets, there are now closed permanently signs. The average age of the population in such places is over 60. And the young people, they've left, and no one promised they would return. But the main issue is not even taxes, export failures, or falling incomes. The main thing is trust. When John Deere leaves, it's not just a brand that's leaving. A symbol is leaving. The belief that someone still listens to a farmer who wakes up at 5 a.m., works 14 hours, and then can't sell his harvest is leaving. This crisis is not just about tractors and soybeans. It is a crisis of national identity. What have we lost? And can we get it back?
That's a 10. That's a good one.
In early 2025, something that had seemed impossible for decades happened in the American heartland. The factories of John Deere, which for many was not just a brand but a symbol of rural America, began to sharply cut production and close. It happened almost without warning. In East Molina, Illinois, 200 workers received letters terminating their contracts literally overnight. There were no meetings, no explanations, no press conferences. Just a dry email stating due to production reorganization. Families who had worked at these factories for generations learned about the loss of their jobs not from the news, but from neighbors or social media. Local shops, cafes, and auto repair shops were empty the very next day. People didn't know what to do either emotionally or financially.
We begin with the president's trade war escalating tonight. This evening, the retaliation against the United States, Canada, and the European Union responding quickly, just hours after President Trump's 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the United States. Canada, the largest supplier of steel to the U.S., slapping new tariffs on $20 billion worth of U.S. goods that are sold in Canada. And the 27 countries of the European Union imposing retaliatory tariffs on up to $28 billion worth of U.S. goods sold in Europe.
But that was only the beginning. In Iowa, in the small town of Ottumwa, a similar plant shut down for a month, officially to reassess demand. Unofficially, employees claimed that part of the equipment had already begun to be dismantled inside the workshops and that logistics for the delivery of new components had been completely suspended. This sparked rumors that the company was leaving the region altogether. Although John Deere representatives tried to reassure the public that this was only a temporary reduction, thousands of people were left uncertain about their future.
After Trump imposed those sweeping 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel imports, the European Union retaliating with tariffs on up to $28 billion of U.S. goods. Trump making it clear this isn't over, vowing to respond in kind with sweeping retaliatory tariffs early next month.
These events came as a real shock to the residents of the Midwest, because John Deere is not just a manufacturer of machinery. It is part of American culture. Tractors of this brand adorn schoolyards, flags with the logo hang on farm fences, and sports teams wear green and yellow colors. In some counties, John Deere tractors were used as wedding cars, and every third graduate of an agricultural machinery technical school did their internship at these factories.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact, I'll tell you, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in.
Against this backdrop, the company's silence was perceived as betrayal. Workers who had been deprived of their livelihoods received not only no assistance, but not even a basic explanation. Officials in Washington commented on the situation dryly, almost indifferently. One advisor to the Department of Agriculture even suggested that the market will regulate itself. This phrase quickly became a meme and a source of anger on social media, where farmers and factory workers accused the authorities of indifference.
With Elon Musk's views on weighing into very much national politics, national elections in Europe. And then on top of that, when you see the backdrop of Tesla upgrading its product line and the impact of them trying to chase more sales at the back end of last year, that means it's short on inventory. It can't necessarily sell as many vehicles or doesn't have as many in stock to sell. So there is that issue there of a confluence of impacts, which means that sales have been falling Again, the question is how much more that will impact into February as well, given that the back end of last year in 2024, Tesla sales did slip overall.
However, the real alarm bells started ringing when it became clear that this was not just about specific factories. This is not a technical glitch or a temporary drop in demand. This is a systemic crisis affecting the entire US agricultural economy. The closure of John Deere factories is a symptom, not a cause. It is a sign that the foundations are cracking. At first glance, the reasons for moving production abroad seem obvious. Labor is 70% cheaper in Mexico. There are no high social security contributions, unions are weaker, and environmental standards are less stringent. For a corporation, this means millions of dollars in savings every year. In addition, a new plant in Ramos Arizpe, construction of which will begin in late 2025, will allow John Deere to move closer to the growing agricultural markets of Brazil and Argentina. From there, it will be easier and cheaper to ship equipment to South America, where demand for agricultural machinery is growing faster than in the US. But there are deeper issues behind this decision. Supply chains within the US have been disrupted. Since the pandemic, many logistics hubs have not regained their previous efficiency. According to a report by Drury analysts published in March 2025, US ports are still 25% busier than before COVID-19. Components for tractor assembly are delayed by weeks, and labor shortages mean that even existing orders are being fulfilled late. In this context, the business logic is understandable. Stability means reliability. However, for farmers and factory workers, this logic sounds like a death sentence. One farmer from Marion County, Iowa, described the situation as follows: "My soybeans started cracking right in the pods in my field. I couldn't harvest them in time because my old tractor broke down and I can't afford a new one. I can't repair it either. There are no parts, and I don't have any money. And when you lose your harvest, you lose everything, not just your profits, but your future." This phrase has become almost prophetic. Behind it lies not just the misfortune of one man. Behind it lies the collapse of an entire system. When agricultural equipment becomes inaccessible, the entire chain breaks down, from planting to harvesting, from logistics to export. And when you remember that it is farmers who ensure the country's food security, it becomes clear that this is not just a business issue, it is a matter of survival. Local authorities have begun to sound the alarm. In Illinois, the governor has declared an agricultural crisis in several counties to attract federal funding. In Iowa, the Save Our Fields initiative has been launched to provide subsidies to farmers who have lost equipment or access to it. But these are only temporary measures that do not address the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is that the system has cracked. John Deere is essentially leaving quietly, without any loud statements, without resistance. The company says it is only moving 5% of its production. But in small towns, these are not just numbers, they are schools, playgrounds, entire streets. People feel abandoned. Because if even a brand with such a history and such roots cannot or will not stay, who will? While corporations count their profits, people count their debts. While Mexico's logistics industry grows, American farmers are learning how to repair old combines with their own hands, because they have no other choice. And in the shadow of these events, a much more dangerous question arises. If John Deere leaves, does it take with it the very belief that America is a country where working land, honest labor, and green tractors still mean something? And if it does, who will say it out loud? While the factories remain silent, soybeans pile up in warehouses with no one to transport them and no one to buy them. And if you think this is just a temporary downturn, take a look at the figures. In the first half of 2025, agricultural exports from the US to three key destinations, Canada, Japan, and China, fell by an unprecedented 94%. This is not a downturn, it is a plunge into the abyss. Losses are estimated at tens of billions of dollars, and millions of tons of products simply cannot find buyers. Corn that does not meet new Asian standards is being returned at ports. China is refusing American beef, citing environmental production costs. And Canada, in response to protectionist tariffs, is introducing its own duties, forcing American farmers to sell at a loss or simply destroy their crops. Warehouses are full. Agricultural regions are drowning in surpluses with nowhere to go. Beans, once called the soft gold of rural America, are now stored in hangars with expired export certificates. In southern Texas, farmers are posting photos of themselves burning wheat simply because transportation costs more than the proceeds from sales. It seems absurd, but this is what economic absurdity looks like when the global market rejects you. At the same time, US products have not become worse. On the contrary, it is often cleaner, higher quality, and more technologically advanced. But price, image, and market instability have done their job. In international tenders, American goods lose out not on quality, but on trust. In such a situation, a new threat emerges. Even if demand miraculously recovers tomorrow, there will not be enough production capacity to adapt quickly. This is because farmers are not just sitting around waiting, they are selling off their equipment, renting other people's fields, refusing insurance, and going into the red just to avoid bankruptcy. The average debt per agricultural producer in mid-2025 was $417,000, almost 40% higher than in 2023. Lending institutions have tightened their terms, and farmers are now forced to take out loans at 11 to 13% per annum, which is deadly for the agricultural sector. And the worst thing is the feeling that no one will come to the rescue. Against this backdrop, those who were recently called second-rate brands in the US are entering the game. Kubota, Now Industrial, and even Caterpillar have all chosen the perfect moment to present themselves not just as an alternative, but as the new norm. Kubota, a Japanese company, was originally perceived as a manufacturer of home tractors for private plots. But over the past 2 years, it has expanded almost unnoticed in 20 states, opening more than 130 new dealerships. Most surprising of all is that it was in Iowa and Nebraska, the home of John Deere, that Kubota's sales grew 4.3 times. One reason is simplicity. The equipment is easy to repair, does not require expensive licenses, and is serviced by local services rather than expensive contractors. While John Deere is embroiled in a conflict over repair rights and blocking access to its machine software, Kubota offers the opposite: repair it however you want. One of Idaho's largest farms even received a year of free maintenance from Kubota simply for completely upgrading its fleet. The company does not make loud statements, does not interfere in politics, and does not argue at the federal level. It just listens. And that's enough today. But that's not all. Now Industrial, the company that owns the Casey and New Holland brands, has quietly revolutionized agricultural logic. While competitors were raising prices, Now launched its trade-in freedom program. Any farmer can trade in their old machine and get a new one with an extended warranty and the right to service it themselves. No hidden conditions. No software subscription. Just the machine, that's it. This strategy has been called anti-platform. Instead of a closed ecosystem, it offered open operation, and the market accepted it. According to FarmTech Weekly magazine, CNH orders in the Midwest grew by more than 18% in the first quarter of 2025. In a general downturn, this is almost a miracle. Caterpillar was the most unexpected player. In the past, it was a leader in the excavator, quarry equipment, and truck segments. Today, it is a player in commercial agriculture. The new line of CA tractors, adapted for mass crop production, first appeared in California and Arizona, and then in Ohio and Missouri. And this is not just a redesign. Caterpillar has invested more than $600 million in the development of reliable equipment that runs on biodiesel and is ready for extreme conditions. Against the backdrop of growing environmental requirements for agricultural production, this approach has been a lifeline for large farms. This is especially true because CAT has never been involved in scandals involving repair bans or withdrawing from rural areas. Its reputation is cleaner than that of its competitors. The competitors' tactical decisions came at the right time and in the right place. But the main thing is something else. These brands didn't just start selling machines. They started rebuilding relationships. They introduced farmer support programs, extended warranties, loyalty discounts, and even surprisingly funding for education for farmers' children. A Kubota training center opened in Texas, where teenagers can learn the basics of agricultural machinery maintenance free of charge. Inhan has launched mobile service stations that travel to the most remote areas at no extra charge. Caterpillar has opened a hotline for farmers, where they can not only ask questions about equipment, but also get help with compensation for damage caused by frost and drought. While John Deere is negotiating with major suppliers, its former customers have already made their choice. And if the ratio used to be 10-1 in Deere's favor, it is now 6-4 and not in its favor. The reason is simple. People no longer believe words. They believe actions. And these actions show that those who remain silent lose the market. Those who listen get a chance. The whole country is watching as the balance of power shifts in an industry that was once considered unbreakable. And today we can say with confidence that the battle is not for market share, it's for respect.